Hello, BookTube, and welcome to Shaketube 2020. This is a BookTube event that's been going on for years, in which a group of booktubers get together to celebrate Shakespeare all through the month of September. And the reason I have Frida Bean so front and center in this video is because it was during Shaketube that she came into my life 3 years ago. If you go back to my Shaketube videos in 2017, you will see a tiny little mouse. Tiny little mouse. No glorious whiskers, no knowing eyes, no, nothing like that. She's an old veteran of this channel now. Although not an old dog, still a very young and spry dog. But in those early Shaketube videos, she was just new to me. In fact, her very first appearance on this channel was in a Shaketube video when I didn't even know her name. And when she was chewing on everything in sight, and when my old dog Malin was still alive, my beautiful Malin Moore was still alive, and was giving me the final gift of a lifetime of giving me gifts by tolerating this little puppy instead of attacking her. And so I thought I had to have her at least one Shaketube video, and this particular Shaketube is hosted by Rainey at Rainey Day Reads, and Lukash at Totally Pretentious, and Jason at Old Blues Chapter and Verse, and yours truly. And I let Jason pick the Shakespeare works that I would discuss one a week. I want to have in the month of September, I intend to have quite a few other discussions of Shakespeare and lists and whatnot of Shakespeare in addition to these videos. But my main hallmark Shaketube videos will be discussions of 4 works. The way we're setting up Shaketube this time around is really winning, and I hope it's a harbinger of things to come. And that is that each of the 4 channels is discussing a different work for the first 3 weekends of September. And then in the final weekend, we all come together for a Zoom conversation in which we all talk about Hamlet. And for a while, when I've been telling you about Shaketube and the shape that it's going to take this year, I've been saying if the technology gods are kind, then that large discussion will happen. But I'm no longer qualifying it that way, because in between when Jason announced that maybe that would be a good idea, and now I have learned Zoom technology, and there's no way that that conversation can fail. I don't know right now the technicalities of where it will be hosted. I think... Actually, okay, I actually don't remember the details, but I think my channel may be the biggest of the 4. So it might make sense to host it on my channel. If that's the case, then I'll be the one sending out the invitations, and I know how to do that. That is definitely true. I know how to answer an invitation, of course. So if somebody else hosts the conversation, that'll work just fine too. But I know this will work. Zoom is easy. So if I can do it, then it's easy. So that is what you can look forward to at the end of the month, is 4 of us coming from 4 radically different places as Shakespeare fans, discussing Hamlet, his most famous play. And today, for Shaketube, I am dealing with a play that is not his most famous play. It's Richard II, the first in a loose tetralogy of history plays that he did in the 1590s. This play was, I think, first written around 1595. And I am reading it in the Royal Shakespeare Company collected Shakespeare that one of you sent me as a gift, this lovely thing, which you can't really tell on camera here, but it is taking a beating. This paperback is taking a beating from me, because it has scarcely left my side since I got it. Not for Shaketube, I got it before Shaketube, but it has scarcely left my side. What is that? Goodness gracious! I've just been living in it and absolutely loving it, and I'm thinking that the antidote for the wear and tear is to buy a hardcover in a slipcase. I've seen those. I know that is made, and that is probably a thing that I want to have, because I've thoroughly fallen in love with this edition. I mean, I love the big brown Riverside Shakespeare, and I have collected Shakespeare right there over my shoulder there. That doesn't have any critical apparatus, or not much of one, but that I love for the fact that it's a nice fat brick. And I have a bunch of individual Shakespeares as well. Sometimes in fact, a lot of times, it absolutely pays to have the individual plays in individual volumes. I don't have them all, And I've bounced all around. I think the old Signet Shakespeares are, by and large, the best one-volume Shakespeares to have, the handiest and with the least falderall. But there's the Arden is a great series. Oxford has done a great series. Penguin has done a great series. And I have at times had all individual Shakespeare plays in some form or other. I don't right now, but it doesn't matter because I have this thing. And I am absolutely loving it. And this is not the first time even that I have discussed Richard II on Shaketube. Richard II is it's a very lyrical play. It's the most lyrical play that Shakespeare ever did. It's completely verse. The whole thing is completely in verse. I've mentioned that that can make it a rarity on your local community theater roster because, although it doesn't necessarily have to be, because there is an art to declaiming Shakespearean verse as opposed to just saying lines. And it's been my experience that most American actors aren't even aware of that. They don't even know that there is such a thing as a way to declaim verse rather than to recite it. And so they sound fundamentally different from, for instance, even the very beginners in the Royal Shakespeare Company. It's in other words, a difficult play for actors to learn, so they tend not to. But I have seen it on stage many times, and it is beautiful to listen to. Just beautiful. It is the pure honey of Shakespeare's rhetorical ability, just at an extreme pitch. You find that pitch in other plays, in later plays, in the plays that are written in the late 1590s, and so it's not unique to Richard II. But the thing that makes it stand out in Richard II is that there's almost nothing else of Shakespeare's stagecraft genius that goes along with it, which is why Richard II is a comparatively minor play. One of the problems that I have with Shakespeare, one of the great things that Shaketube is an antidote to, is the enormous amount of pedantry and condescension that this author, more than almost any other, aside from maybe Proust and all of philosophy, tends to bring out in readers. I don't know why that is. I've never quite figured it out. Maybe it's just his unparalleled social cachet. But one way or another, it's usually in connection with Shakespeare that you will encounter the most condescending prigs imaginable. And those condescending prigs, one of their favorite gimmicks, one of the favorite gambits that they have, is to seize on some work that they know perfectly well is not a major work and call it a major work. Say that this is a towering work of genius. And for some reason, Richard II seems to prompt that response in a lot of people. And here I mean men. Of course, I'm talking about men. I've never yet met a woman or read a woman that did anything like this. But men I've seen tend to grab on this play and one comedy and grotesquely elevate them above their station. When if you're not looking at it through the lens of condescension, through the lens of patronizing people by being a hipster, by saying, this one vinyl album that was only pressed once and that only had a distribution of 12 copies is actually definitive. Oh, you don't know about it? Oh, okay. Well, I hate hipsterism like that when it infiltrates anything, especially when it infiltrates something I love. So I guess that's by way of saying that if you ever encounter one of those condescending prigs who tells you just sniffingly, oh, well, Richard II, obviously a major play, they are wrong. You already know, even if you don't study Shakespeare from school, you already know what his major plays are, and that is right, because that has been tested over and over again for hundreds of years. And one of the reasons why this isn't a major play is because it only has that one element in prominence. You can break Shakespeare's genius down into a few elements. He's great at all of them. One is the lyricism of his language, and Richard II is a hallmark example of that. This is all verse, and it's all beautiful. Another would be a kind of flexible, strong characterization. Shakespeare's characters don't sound, most of them, the good ones, the ones that where he's paying real attention and not just dashing something off, don't read like anything else anywhere in his entire epoch. It's what's led so many critics to say there really is something. It's not just the tradition of the canon and the way we're all taught in school. There really is something to this author that doesn't exist thick on the ground anywhere else. And there's a bit of that kind of character play in this particular work, but not much. Not much. Not nearly as much as literary hipsters will tell you. Shakespeare hipsters will tell you. So it's the story of King Richard II, who in the course of the play is diffident and clueless and pompous and self-deceiving and deceitful and callous and shallow, and he is surrounded by men who are jockeying for power or for his throne, who are every bit as bad in one way or another. They have all of those qualities, only mixed up and down. There are very, very few actually likable characters anywhere in this play, and none of the major characters are. And that, in Shakespeare, if you don't have any likable characters, then what you want are characters who are unlikable in interesting ways, and you don't really have that either in this play. So, an enormous amount of the action happens off stage. An enormous number of key dramatic opportunities are simply missed. Where you're reading the play and you're thinking, wait a minute, Shakespeare only a couple of years later would never let that moment go. That's the moment that he would turn the whole act on. And he doesn't. You can encounter that over and over again in this play, where it's just a missed opportunity, where he just doesn't do it. And there's a final sop in the last act of I think trying to win audience sympathy to the part of by then deposed and imprisoned King Richard II. It doesn't work, though, because you've made him a thorough sot for the rest of the play. So trying to salvage him in the last minute with a bit of doomed heroics isn't going to work at all. By this point, modern audiences, we won't talk about contemporaneous audiences, because they had the din of active live grenade politics in their minds the whole time they were watching this play, and for decades afterward, because it's about the overthrow of a king, and it's beautiful language. It's all incredibly memorable and quotable, but it's an explosive subject, especially in the 1590s. So this play has been seized upon many, many times for reasons outside of its artistic merit, but by the time you get to the end of a play in which that's all you've done, there's no way to renovate any of the characters. It's that in itself is a weird dramatic decision, that the like of which Shakespeare doesn't make for the next 8 or 9 years, until, I would argue, he starts to lose interest in the stage and maybe lose complete solo control over the material that he was presenting for the stage, so that you start to get weirdness starts to creep back in. Weirdness that is anti-dramatic. And Richard II is an anti-dramatic play, in a very strange way, coming from a master of drama. Shakespeare is a master of drama. It's incredible what he can do when he's in that frame of mind. So he doesn't do it in this play, though. So my hope is that I will not be talking about Richard II ever again in Shaketube. I fully intend to let all co-hosts. I'm hoping we have another co-host, maybe 2 more next year, and I'm fully planning on letting a co-host pick all of my Shakespearean works next year as well. I'm just hoping it's not Richard II again. It's an instinct that some people have, where they love a thing, and there's a lot to love in Richard II. You're going to get swept away in the language. It's going to intoxicate you. They get swept away in something, and that makes them think or want to believe that something is great. It isn't. It does not necessarily work that way. There's no kind of magic that can be done over the bones of Richard II to make the play first rank for Shakespeare. Its direct sequel is first rank, but not this. So your Shaketube video from me for today, I didn't do one yesterday, but your Shaketube video from me today is Richard II. Of course, you should read all of Shakespeare many, many times. He is your culture. If you speak English, he is your cultural heritage. He is your cultural progenitor. It's important for you to know him as well as it is for you to know the King James Bible. But if you read Richard II, and at times you find it a slog, not because it isn't beautiful and not because it isn't intelligently done, but because there seems to you to be something missing. Some engine. If you have like 5 engines that power a play through its acts, one engine seems not to be on at all. If you get that impression while you're reading this play, you are not wrong. This is more rhetorical exercise and historical, an exercise in draping history with rhetoric than it is a drama. And it didn't take long for Shakespeare to fix that. It didn't take long for him to start getting his instincts for how to infuse these historical dramas with personal drama. That happens in the very next play in this sequence. So, that's just a parting word of consolation. If you're reading this thing, if, for instance, you saw the schedule of all of Shaketube, I know quite a few of you are reading along with everything in Shaketube this year, and you saw Richard II, and maybe some of you who have been around a while remembered that it's not the first time that Richard II has appeared in Shaketube, and you're wondering what you're missing. You may not be missing anything. Okay, so let's kind of hope, all between us, that Shaketube doesn't discuss Richard II for a while. Let's go 5 or 6 years. This is a point that I've been making to my co-host in private in Voxer, is that and also a point that I've been making for years before there was a booktube, which is that this instinct to investigate and then inhabit Shakespeare's lesser works out of some feeling that everything's been said, or that the minds have been quarried out of the major works, that feeling is completely wrong. The major works are inexhaustible. So we'll who knows what we'll be doing. Next time I'm doing a comedy. Next week I'm doing a comedy. Jason gave me a comedy to do, so we'll see what we can say about that. But in the meantime, I'm going to wrap this up. That was my Shaketube video for this week. I'll leave a list to all the others that are coming up this week, so you can go and enjoy them. And I will see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.